Good afternoon. Welcome to our Municipal Council for Tuesday, February 4th, 2020. I'd like to call this meeting to order at this time and ask if there's any declarations of interest. Seeing none, I will move to presentations. Mr. Clerk, I have no presentations noted on my agenda. Is that correct?
That is correct, Madam Mayor.
Thank you very much. We're down to committee recommendations, and that's pages 5 and 6. And I'm looking for a motion to receive the recommendations. Councillor Persuccini and Councillor Foster, all those in favor? And that's carried. Item F is adoption of minutes. And we have 3 sets of minutes, January 14th from our special meeting, January 21st from our Committee of the Whole, and January 21st for council minutes. I have a mover and a seconder. Councillor Morton, Councillor Foster. Do them together? Yeah. All those in favor? And that's carried. Item number 4 is the adoption of our council minutes from the meeting held on January 21st. Any questions, any comments, more information? Go ahead.
Sorry, Madam Mayor, I believe you're on item G. That last motion was for all of the minutes together.
Yes, it was. Sorry, I flipped the page. There we go. Thank you. Item G, correspondence for consideration. And this is correspondence from the Director of Legislative Services, City Clerk, City of Richmond Hill, pages 25 to 28. Comments, questions? Do I have a mover or seconder? Yes, go ahead, Councillor Roy DeClemente.
Move receipt, please.
Thank you. Thank you. Any questions or comments? All those in favor? And that's carried. We have a couple of reports here, and the first one is Development Services Planning Branch request for street name endorsement by Sharonvit Estates, Sharonvit Phase 3, Community of Sharon. And this was the discussion that we had 2 weeks ago, I guess now, regarding 2 streets that are somewhat lanes. And they had names on them that were more prominent in the community than we thought a lane should be. So we've found 2 new ones at the suggestion of members of council. I have a mover and a seconder. Councillor Roy DeClemente, comment? Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Happy to support this. I know that there's some servicing work that's taking place on this site. I'm just wondering through you to staff if we have a timeline for when this developer is going to remove the stockpiled soil that's on site. There's a fair number of people who are on the north side of that property who live on Huycke who've been asking because there's a mountain of soil in their backyard, basically. I'm just wondering if we have a timeline.
Through you, Madam Mayor, we don't have a time frame right now, but I can certainly look into it and get back to council on that.
Thank you.
I know that there has been some discussion, and I understood that it was imminent. Now, I'm not sure what that time means for clockwise, but perhaps they need a little push. Spring is coming. Okay, thank you. Councillor Roy DeClemente, did you move that? Thank you. Could I have a seconder, please? Councillor Persuccini, all those in favor? That's carried. Item number 2, Corporate Services Finance Branch, proposed water and wastewater business plan and budget. Go ahead, please.
Madam Mayor, this report reflects the recommendations of Budget Committee from January 21st. And I think the, as you can see in the recommendations, the high-level summary is recommending the water and wastewater rates remain the same as 2019, pending review by our operations staff of the unbilled water issues and water loss, as well as in 2020, we are planning to undertake a water financial plan in accordance with the legislation. And as those two exercises will help inform the rates for 2021 and beyond. So although we wouldn't normally recommend freezing or leaving the rates unchanged, this probably is an appropriate time to do that while those two other items get reviewed, and it gives us a chance to have information come back to council to inform the 2021 process.
Thank you. Questions? Comments? Councillor Morton.
Just a comment, Madam Mayor, can we ask for a recorded, can I ask for a recorded vote on this, please?
Councillor Crothers.
Thank you. I think the most important thing when we're looking at our water is ensuring that it's safe. And secondary to that is ensuring that we maintain the reserves to maintain a safe water supply and to replace equipment as needed. And seeing as how this can be so expensive, it's important that we're putting reserves on an annual basis. We also want to maximize our efficiency to keep our costs as low as possible for the consumer. And then the last thing that we've repeated here many times is that the cost of the water is borne by those who use the water. And I see that this budget checks all of those boxes. So I'm grateful for the time that staff have put into this. And I think holding the rate while we look for further efficiencies, I think is a smart move. But I think it has to be predicated on the fact that it could end up going up more a year from now. By holding it flat this year, it could mean a bigger raise in the future. But I think it's the right thing to do right now, and I'm supporting this. Thank you.
You seconding that motion? Thank you. Any other comments, questions? I guess I just have one for staff. This is an unusual move to have it flatlined for a year with our water rates, and I'm wondering how we may message this out to the community. There's been any thought yet, or I just think it is unusual, and we don't want to build up a false expectation for future years, and we want to make sure that people realize that all of the important things that we do with water will continue, regardless of whether we raise the rates or not.
Madam Mayor, I think we'll work very carefully with our operations folks as well as communications on making sure that there's some concise messaging. Our resolutions really quite clearly outline the major drivers for sort of the recommended rates that we're proposing for 2020, and I think we've said consistently, and we'll certainly communicate this in our future public communications, that this is a temporary measure while we look at some of the unbilled water issues that we deem to be excessive at this point, and we think it's prudent to have a better understanding of that on the operational side before we adjust rates further. And I think the other important point is that in 2020 we're undertaking a water financial plan in accordance with the regulations that will reassess where we're at in terms of reserves and rates and make recommendations. It will make recommendations for rates over the next several years, and I think that'll put council in a much better position to ensure that that they're adjusting them accordingly. So I think it's an appropriate short-term measure, and I think we can explain it as such.
I particularly am interested in how we capture our last recommendation as far as the region of York, working with them to establish a joint task force on this water loss meter issue that I think it may be a little confusing to the average homeowner, and to try and message that in an appropriate fashion, I think it might take a little bit of time, but I think it'll be good for us at the end of the day if we have it. Okay. Go ahead.
I'm just listening to the discussion here, and I wonder whether it might be prudent for us to make reference to the work that's being done on the financial side of things as well for 2020 as part of this resolution, to to sort of send that signal. Again, it comes out of the fact that council only speaks through its resolutions, but to sort of signal that there is additional work on the financial plan for the water budget, and that work is being undertaken in 2020. So that because of that work, that's why we're freezing rates this year. I think that's part of the messaging, that there's further study on the financial side of things as well as on the operational side of things, and whether or not that's a whereas or that we craft something accordingly, that might be prudent here to kind of reflect that.
Comments? Questions? Do you have something you wanted to add to
It
your
was
motion?
really
or-
and truly just I was listening to the discussion and comments that were being made and the concern that people were expressing. So perhaps we would say, through you, Madam Mayor, to the Treasurer, what is there's a financial aspect that's being worked on in 2020. What is that? Can you refresh my memory, please?
Madam Mayor, through you, a water financial plan is being prepared. It's done every 5 years in accordance with the regulations and our licensing as a water operator. So certainly, we will build that into our communications. If you wanted to put that into the resolutions, it may fit in number 4. We may have that whereas a water financial plan is being prepared in accordance with the legislation in 2020 that will inform water and wastewater rates moving forward, comma, that the 2020 water and wastewater rates remain at the existing 2019 levels pending the outcome of the study. Like that might be, if you were trying to incorporate it into the recommendation, it may fit there. It does get a little bit wordy, but we will incorporate that messaging regardless. But I think there's a way that you could build that in if you wish.
This isn't my motion, though. That's the only problem. I think it's Councillor
Morton's motion.
Would you like to amend it accordingly, or are you fine with it as presented? So we are going to amend it. Okay. I might suggest that we say, whereas a water financial plan and further operational studies are being undertaken, which would also reflect the water loss and the task force. I think it's not just because otherwise you would imply that you're freezing rates once every 5 years while you undertake the study, and that's not been the case in the past, and it may not be the recommendation in future either. I think we want to make sure that it's the financial and operational study.
Was that your intent? You're fine with that? Councillor Crothers?
I would suggest adding the word temporarily so that it further emphasizes that this isn't a plan to hold the rates, but lets people know that it will eventually change. Temporarily remain at the existing 2019 levels.
Councillor, go ahead.
Through you to staff, I know we pass a bylaw that sets the water rates. Does the word temporarily impact that, or would we simply say that the 2020 water that for 2020, comma, the water and wastewater rates remain at the 2019 levels? I don't want to create the temporarily and then have people expect that their water bill won't be the same as it was last year.
Madam Mayor, through you, I think, I do see the intent of trying to put the word temporarily in, just to ensure that there's not the impression that this is the beginning of a trend moving forward. And I think saying for 2020 would do that, and then would allow staff to set the bylaw up very clearly that the 2020 rates will be established in accordance with this direction.
Yeah, 2020, comma, water. Yes. Okay, that satisfy? I'm seeing nods all the way around. Okay. That was a recorded vote request.
Through Madam Mayor, Councillor Morton has requested a recorded vote. The original motion was amended and it's up on the screen before you. Councillor Morton, how do you vote? Yeah. Councillor Persicini, how do you vote? Yes. Use your mic. Councillor Roy Clemente, how do you vote?
Yes.
Councillor Crothers, how do you vote?
Yes.
Councillor Crone, how do you vote?
Yes.
Councillor Foster, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mayor Haxon, how do you vote?
Yes.
Motion's carried. Thank you.
Thank you. Item I, we have no resolutions at this time. Item J, we have bylaws on page 37 to 41. Any questions on the bylaw? Thank you. Moved by Councillor Persicini. Seconded by Councillor Roy Clemente. Any questions, comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried. Do we have any other business at this time? I have one item that I just wanted to let people know that the region of York passed a resolution to pilot automated speed enforcement in 12 school areas across the region. And we, of 12, we have 2. And one is at in Mount Albert, on the Mount Albert Road at the school. Second one is in Sharon, in the school zone for Sharon Public School. So the pilot will include rotating one mobile automated speed sign unit between 12 community school zones. During a 2-year pilot, automated speed enforcement signs will be installed on regional roads 90 days in advance of activating a camera to inform motorists of the upcoming change. So this is the first opportunity to have a look at red light cameras and in a speed zone. So it's the same principle as the red light camera in that it will pick up some speeding that we think is busy in our community. So we'll wait and see. I'll let people know when it is installed, but I think we should be looking for it in early spring. And other than that, that's the only other business that I have. Item L, confirming bylaw. Have a mover and a seconder, please. Councillor Persicini, Councillor Foster, all those in favor. That's carried. And an adjournment at 3:19, moved by Councillor Crothers, seconded by Councillor Morton, all those in favor. And that's carried. Thank you very much.